Hello and welcome to the channel's Forge. I'm your host, David. Now, this is a new series that I'll be filming and it will essentially document all of the different activities I get up to into building boards. So this one's going to be about casting. I have a very specific board to build for a set of 6 missions coming up very soon for a special feature. So I have to build some very specific piece of terrain for that, and I'll document that whole process. So moving forward, I've talked about the fact that the channel will have to make fixed boards. Or more fixed boards rather. We'll still keep with the original format, but there are some battlefields that will require some fixed terrain building, and I'm reasonable at building terrain. I'm not amazing, but I'm fairly reasonable, and it will just be a way of documenting that. So if you're looking to take it on some projects, not sure where to start, hopefully this will be a great source of information for you. So in this video I am going to cover how I cast this piece of terrain from Grim Dark Terrain, and we'll go through all of the details. I'll do an actual build for you and I'll take you through the whole process. So it might be a long video, but hopefully it will be useful. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to say that all of the products and the pieces of equipment I've purchased for this video, they have all been off my own back. I am not sponsored in any way, shape or form by any of these companies. I'm currently based in the UK. I am moving to New Zealand. So all of this was purchased in the UK, and all of the product information, or rather the links to find that information and these products, will be on the description below. So I will put a link to Amazon for this and the website for Bentley Advanced Materials that I brought this product from. So if you want to duplicate exactly what I've done, it will all be available to you. Let's get started. Now, there's a gentleman called Rudolph, and he's from Grim Dark Terrain, and he produced these amazing pieces of scenery for Adeptus Titanicus. He has a Patreon page, which you can find in the link below. And every month he releases this just amazing terrain, which will look fantastic on the channel, and we'll be able to film some really cinematic battlefields thanks to this terrain. Because as good as the Games Workshop stuff is, it is very limited and just doesn't have nowhere near the range of terrain that Rudolph has produced for his Patreon. So I contacted Rudolph. I said, look, I really want your terrain. How can I get hold of it? He goes, well, you'll need a 3D printer. I haven't got one, but he put me in touch with somebody that is in the UK, a guy called Brad, and he's been printing all of the releases from Grim Dark Terrain for me. Now, you might say to me, well, why don't you just buy a 3D printer yourself and print your own stuff and go from there? And you're right, I could do that. The reason why I haven't done it is because I've just recently bought a wooden CNC machine, a Stepcraft D840. It's an amazing piece of kit, and I've had to learn a completely new program for that. I've had to learn how to cut stuff on it, and it's a really complex program, and my brain just does not have enough room to learn how to 3D print as well. Now, a lot of you will say, well, it's quite easy, you know, you get it set up, pour the resin in, blah, 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 push a button, get the files sorted out, blah, blah, blah. You are right, but I just haven't got the time, effort, or the energy to do it. I just can't do it. So thankfully, Brad, who runs a website, goldiesprints.co.uk, he prints all this stuff that he gets from Grim Dark Terrain's Patreon, and he sends them to me. Every time there's a new product release, he just prints a whole range of it for me and sends it to me. Then I can have a look at it and I decide, well, I want 5 of those, 10 of those, 10 of those, and then I will cast them going forward. So, and the reason why I'm going to cast is because I can do it at home. It's very quick. Once you've got all the equipment and once you're all set up, ready to go, it is a really fast process, and it's really cheap. And all I have to do is make sure that the mold I produce is really good, and then I can make multiple casts from that mold. So if I'm halfway through a project and I need 3 more of these, I can just go into the garage, pour the resin in, off, wait, I think it's 4 hours, and I've got the cast ready to go, and I can incorporate into the terrain. So it will save me a lot of time, effort, and money. And also moving forward, as I start building permanent boards for the channels, I will need 20 of something that will cost me an absolute fortune to either get 3D printed or to purchase, and it's just easier if I buy one and cast it for my own personal use. I am not doing this for a commercial venture, so it's just my own personal use. Okay, glad we got that sorted out. let's start this process. Let's go through exactly what you need to make your first cast. And essentially, if you ignore everything on this table, apart from this really is all you need. This was purchased from Bentley Advanced Materials. Bentley products. They're based in the UK. They've got various stores around the UK, and essentially it's a starter kit. And in it, you get your silicone rubber, you get a couple of release agents and sealers, and then you get the actual resin itself. And then all you need then is just the materials to make a mold with, which I'll go through with you. And essentially, all I've done is it's just Lego, a piece of plastic card, and some double-sided tape. That's all you need. So I'll do a very quick unboxing. I'm not going to go in-depth into this unboxing. But you get your, so this is called Umu 30. That's your silicon. And then you get, I need to read the front of it, Smooth Cast 300, and that is your resin. And you get a ton of instructions with all the technical details and information that you need for this product. And also there's a little catalogue there that shows you how to make some basic molds and the process to it. I didn't even read that because I watched a ton of YouTube videos and I kind of just worked it out myself. All I used though was this quick start instruction manual, which was included in the kit, and I followed it to the absolute letter, and that's exactly what I'll be doing with you today. Now you might say, well, you know, we can just buy this stuff ourselves and read it and do it ourselves. Yep, you absolutely can. But do you know what? When I was searching on YouTube, I just wanted someone to show me how to cast the exact thing I was casting. And I know that sounds ridiculous because you could say, well, I've got this piece of terrain or I've got this thing I made. Nobody in the world who will have the same piece of terrain that you've got in your hand if you've made it yourself that they're going to cast. But I just take information in that way. I just like it laid out to me really simply. I'm a simple person at heart and I just wanted it done there and then so I could watch it. And I didn't find that, so I figured I'd do it. And then if you guys want to duplicate this, then it's all there for you. All right, so we've got our product. All you'll need in this video is really some stirrers, some wooden stirrers, which you can buy from the same website. You'll need some measuring cups. And then to build your mold, you will need a base material. I'm using 1mm. It's clear plastic, but you can use plastic card, that's fine. A load of Lego. And this bit is optional, just some 0.25mm plastic card, and I'll show you what that's for later. That is optional, you don't need it. And some double-sided tape. All right, let's get started. I'm going to take you through the whole process about how to make this little piece of terrain. And it sits on top of the wall sections like that. So obviously that's curved and that's a straight, but it sits on the wall sections like that and just allows you some extra height. So it's really, really simple. So what I do is when making a mold, I need to make sure that the walls of the mold are quite thick, and all that does is when you come to cast, when you pour the resin at the top, it stops the mold from splaying outwards, and you get a distorted cast. So if they're quite thick, they'll stand under their own rigidity, I guess, and you won't get a warped mold. But what you can do is you can then rebuild the Lego surround and place it in that, and that will keep the walls from bowing in. But I knew that I'd be casting loads at a time, and I didn't want to buy hundreds of pieces of Lego to make sure that all of them are covered, so that's why I made them quite thick. But you could save yourself some silicon by having loads of Lego and doing that. But I decided I didn't want to do it because I knew I'd be doing loads at a time. Okay, so all I do is I build a little Lego surround. Make sure I've got this right. Lovely. And I'm only using 14 pieces of Lego 2x4s to make this little mold. Here we go. Great stuff. So I've got my little mold, and I can check that if I can get the top-down camera zoomed in a little bit. Let's have a look. So you can see there in the picture that's what I want. I want a nice thick wall around the item that I want to cast, and that will do perfectly. So once I've worked out that that's what I want, I then cut a base to place my double-sided tape on. So I hope you can see that in the camera. So that's all cut to size perfectly. Now, in the instructions you get with the resin and the silicone, it says that to secure your item down, use you can use hot glue, but because of the complexity of these shapes, to get a bead of hot glue around the base of that would be very difficult. So I decided that double-sided tape was the way forward, and do you know what? It's outstanding. I've had no problems whatsoever with it. So all I do is I just cut off a couple of lengths of double-sided tape. It doesn't matter that there's a join in it. It's absolutely fine. Just make sure that the join is really tight, that's all. So just take some time getting it right, which I have. And then all I do is I just cut off the excess. Oh, you can't see that in the top down, sorry. So make sure that's all cut nicely. Look at that, beautiful. Mind your fingers, boys and girls. I've cut my fingers loads, I'm sure you have too. Cool, so we've got a nice little, a little coverage there. I'm going to zoom the camera back out now. There we go. And I peel off the double-sided tape, or the backer rather. That's fine. And then I just place the walls of my mould on there. So that's in nice and tight. Give a bit of a push. Perfect. And then gently lower your item that you want to cast directly. Actually, no, don't do that just yet. I'll tell you why. So we're at this stage. Now, what I did in my first cast, I didn't seal the edges of the inside of the walls of my mould. I didn't think I needed to, but what happened is that the silicone gets in it and it leaches in between the cracks of the Lego, and you get this kind of walled effect. So it's just basically the imprint of the Lego mould around it. Now, that's absolutely fine, but the problem is if I did make one where the walls were quite thin, like I mentioned earlier, and I wanted to put it back into the form, I just didn't want these little fins just sticking out and just becoming a pain, because for me this is all about speed and efficiency. I haven't got time to mess around with pulling these little bits off and making sure everything's works. I just haven't got time for that. So a little bit of time and effort now will pay dividends much further down the line. So what I've done, I've just cut these surrounds on my Cricut, and I'll overlay the video of that. And I just measured the dimensions with a caliper, put the dimensions into the Cricut program and hit cut, and it cut them perfectly. So these slide down on the insides of the molds, and all that'll do is that will give you a beautifully smooth finish. So if you do want to put them back into the Lego molds, you've got 0.025 mil of tolerance thanks to the plasticard there, and they just slot straight back into the Lego forms, and the mold is held really rigid, and you will have no bowing or flexing of that mold when you come to cast. Now, it is absolutely optional. You don't have to do it, but I just found it really helps. Now, what you'll need to hold these in place is just some good old-fashioned Pritt stick. You don't want to super glue them in place or plastic cement them in place, because you need to reuse that Lego multiple times. So you just need a little dab of Pritt stick in there. Hopefully you can see this on the top-down camera. And you just slide it in on the walls. The double-sided tape will just grab the very tip of the plasticard, and it will hold it in place, and you just smooth it down with your finger. You don't need a lot, and you don't have to cover the entire surface either. You just need it to stick on there. So that's perfectly flat. Do the same with the other one. Oops. That slots in beautifully. Just push it down with your scalpel or your finger, whatever you're comfortable with, doesn't matter. And as I said, this is completely optional. You don't have to do it. But it just produces a nicer final mold, I think. And I do genuinely believe it will save you time in the future, but also it will save you a tiny, tiny, tiny piece of mold and resin later on. So that's it. So all of my molds, I'll get this on the camera here, have been done exactly the same way. There is no change in the way that I've made these molds. And I will be casting all of these together live for you guys, and we'll demold them and go through the whole process. So you can see all the molds now are identical. Okay, so the last thing to do now is to just place our item right in the center. You can use some tweezers, you can do whatever you need, but I just judge it by eye. And that double-sided tape is bang on, and it holds it beautifully in place. And there's no hot glue, so you haven't got the base of your mold, then you've got the bubble of hot glue, and then you've got your item, and when you push it down it doesn't squidge out. There's no cleanup, there's no mess. Hot glue is a real pain because you've got that stringy bit. It's just a real mess. This is so much cleaner and so much nicer, and guarantees if you've sanded the bottom of the item you wish to mold with fine grit sandpaper, it allows for a fantastic adhesion, and you are not going to get any problems or any bleed through from the resin or the silicone when you make your mold. All right, so hopefully you're at this stage where you've got all of your items ready to be cast. There's a couple of processes we need to go through, which we'll do now. Just make myself some space. Next up, what we need to do is we need to prepare the items we wish to mold and our mold ready for casting. So in the little pack you get these two little spray bottles of stuff. One is a super seal sealing agent, and one is an ease release. So what we do first of all is we use the super seal, and what that does, it just lays a coat, a very fine coat of this product over the inside of the mold, the product, and every surface in there, and it just helps kind of just bind it all together and produce a nice smooth surface. I believe that's what it does. And then after that, you have to do 2 applications. There's a long time between each application, which I'll go through in a sec, and then we need to add ease release, and that helps you release the silicone from your mold. So let's just quickly refer to the instruction manuals. So it says here, apply a light mist coating of super seal, which is this little badger here. Let it dry for 5 minutes, and then repeat for 20 minutes before applying ease release. So these two products are really, really nasty. And what I've done in the past when I did my first one, I just did it outside quickly and then brought it inside into the garage, and it was absolutely fine. Obviously I'm filming this, so I'm going to wear a mask because they are really toxic. So I'll get that done very quickly. All right, that has been 5 minutes. I now need to do a second coat and then leave it for 20. That was a long 20 minutes. All right, it's not very exciting, I have to say. Next, we've got to spray it with this, what is it? Ease Release 205, and that just ensures that when the silicone has cured, it's easy to separate out from our material that we're trying to mold. So again, it's pretty nasty. I'll stick my mask on, and we'll just read the instructions for this for everyone's benefit. So we put the first coat on, allow it for 10 minutes to dry, and then we put a second coat on. I have got the door open and windows are open outside as well, so loads of ventilation because this stuff is real nasty. Right, I'm back. I did the second application of the ease release off camera because it wasn't very interesting. It was just me putting a mask on and spraying the mold. So they are ready to go. All right. So a couple of things we need to think about now. The silicone, it needs a really good shake up. So I've given it a ton of shaking before I came back on camera. So that's kind of all ready to go. And now what we need to do, we need to think about how much of the silicone we need. So we need the same amount of part A and part B. And I reckon we will need, I think we'll need about 300, I think it's 300 mils here on the side. So we'll have 150 of each, and that'll give us 300. And then we'll pour it in the top. And hopefully it'll be enough. Now, if it's not enough, we'll be able to judge as we keep pouring. We'll leave a couple of these off to the side and we'll only cast 1 or 2. So I just don't want to waste material because it is quite expensive. So the other thing to think about is on the first mould that I did, it came out perfect. There was no air bubbles, there was nothing wrong with it. Followed all the directions, which is fine. And then when I did my second mould, there was a tiny little air bubble. So when I when I put the resin in, there was an air bubble in the product, and it just looked really bad. And I'm one of these guys, I just want to get it done right first time, no messing around. So I'll recast that particular piece. Now, to get round to the no air bubble situation, I've brought a vacuum pump off Amazon. It was quite expensive. I bought a much larger one, a 12 litre. It was £169, and it came with the chamber itself and the compressor to evacuate the air from it. You can buy one which is about £100, and that was for a tank half the size. But I know later on I'll be doing much bigger projects, and I will need a bigger vacuum pumps. There's no point buying twice. I just thought I'd buy a big one straight off, and then it will cover all eventualities of the models that I'll build in the future. So these are really essential to get the air bubbles out of the resin and the silicone, and they work amazingly well, and I'll demonstrate that soon. The only thing I would say is make sure you use PTFE tape. It's a plumber's product, and just to reinforce the connections on here and create a really airtight seal, because the resin in particular cures really fast. I think it's about 3 or 4 minutes, and you need to get those air bubbles out. So it's not too bad with the silicone, but with the resin you need it to pump the air out as fast as possible, so you can then pour it so it doesn't set whilst you're mid pour. So really essential. So I'm just going to make sure it works, and I shall orientate this towards you guys. Make sure the seal's on top. Turn it on. And hopefully after about a minute, you'll see the air pressure rise. So I want to make sure it's working before I start putting all the resin and all the silicone together. There we go. It just needed a little bit of pushing down, a little bit of encouragement, and you can see the pressure building up, and that will draw all of the air out of the resin and the silicone. So we're happy that it's all working now, which is perfect. I'm just going to push these molds to the front. Right, bit of experience I've learned from here. What you do is you pour equal amounts into each thing, measure it out so it's complete level. So we're going with 150 mils each side, and then you pour one into the other. Now, the blue is a lot less thicker than the pink stuff. So what I tend to do is I tend to pour the blue into the pink rather than the other way around. But also, if you're only going to 300 mil, you've then got to pour it past the top part, and it just wastes so much on top, and you have to get a little spatula out and fill around with it, and it's really annoying. So what I tend to do is, if I know I only need 300, I just cut the container so it's less distance for the silicone or the resin to travel. Trying to cut it as best as I can. Mind your fingers again. And it saves on waste. So we've got a real crappy one, and then we've got a good one here. So I'm going to go ahead and pour my blue. Just give it another shake. Ready to go. And what you will need is, when you pour the two together, you've got quite a long time to do it. How long have we got? Working time, mix thoroughly for 3 minutes. Oh, it doesn't actually say, but when I did it before, I had about 5 or 6 minutes before it started to harden. I think you've got even a bit longer actually, so that's good. It's a wonderful blue. So I'm just gonna pour this in. So I want 150 mil. It's quite a lot actually. I think we'll have more than enough for all of these. So bang on 150, brilliant. Stick the lid back on. Don't spill any of it, it's expensive stuff. Oh, I think that's loads actually, that'll be good. Now we've got our pink stuff. Oh, it's horrible. Looks like Calpol from when you was a kid and you were sick. Your mum or dad used to give you a bit of Calpol. You know, and in this state where they're not separated, they're fine. You can just leave them for as long as you're ready. I found that wet wipes were a really good way of clearing them up. So you can just wipe the rim of that, so we're not creating mess. Very helpful. All right, so that's that. What you will need to mix this resin is a really good stirrer. Now, you can use these wooden ones, which I brought, and they're really good for scooping out, but to really mix these two together and get a great consistency throughout, I just found a battery drill, and I bent a welding rod into the shape of a stirrer, and that really does the business. So we've got to work quite quickly now. So the process will be stick the two together, whiz them up, really get them mixed, pop it into the vacuum chamber, and then we're going to pour the mould. And when we pour them into the mould, we're going to pour it quite high, just to help the air bubbles escape. And we're going to start at the lowest point. There's lots of directions, you know, start in the corner, start in the middle, whatever. But I'm just going to start in a corner and let it build up, and then gradually just work my way around the mould so it takes the form of that shape. So I might not talk very much through it because it's quite a delicate operation, so I'll try my best for you. So there's the blue going in. It's much better to pour the blue into the pink, as I said, because the blue flows so much nicer. We'll try and get as much of it out as possible. You don't need to wear a mask for this. It's not toxic. It doesn't smell. It's pretty good stuff. Now, be gentle if you're using a drill. It can go all over the place. And you're looking for it to turn a really lovely purple. Which it's doing now really nicely. Try and get the bits on the edges. And what you can do to really get those bits off the side is to go back in with your spatula. I don't want it to drip too much on my table here. And just scrape the edges. Yeah, that's fine. It's looking pretty good, to be fair. Back in with the old mixer. Just trying to get the sides a little bit more. There's quite a bit of pink still on the outside here. So we'll try and tease it into the mixture. Okay, that is really nice. Really nice. All right, so we're just going to pop that on there so there's no problem. Wipe my hands clean. Wet wipes are an amazing item for this. Okay, I'm going to pop it straight in. Oh, release the pressure off. There we go. Straight in the bottom, right in the middle. Got it all over my fingers. I should have put some gloves on. Now I'm going to try and get the camera in here if I can, just so you can see the air escaping. Not too bad. Okay, so I'm going to turn the compressor on, push down on the lid, close the valve off. Yep, there we go. We can see the pressure rise now, and hopefully you'll be able to see the air being pulled out of that silicone. I'll try and zoom in a little bit for you guys. You can get a bit of reflection actually off my lights at the top here. So what's happening there is the air, the resin is being drawn up as the air is coming out of it. It's rising. You can see the bubbles come out the top. So it takes a couple of minutes. And what I did as well, when I used this the first time, I put it in twice. I vacuumed it twice. It's good. You'll know when the vacuum pump is struggling because it will make a really weird noise. It's very close to it now. can see that rise. It's nearly at the top, and we'll shut it off in a second. Like so, and we'll release the pressure within. Beautiful. I'm just going to give it a second pump. There we go. You can see the pressure rising. Takes a little bit of time. While that's working away, I'm going to put some gloves on. Yeah, it's looking good. Still rising. See from the camera there. Try and push it under a little bit more. There we go. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a reflection on the top. But you get the idea. Whether it's overkill to do it twice, but it's better to do it twice now and regret it later and get tons of bubbles or get a bad cast or whatever later on down the line. So it's bubbling away beautifully. Now, it's worth noting that this product in particular does not require a vacuum pump. You don't have to have one of these machines, but I just think get it done now, it'll just save you grief in the future. Because I did get air bubbles in the one I made previously. Okay, perfect. It looks really good. So I'm going to get rid of this now because it's in the way. I'm going to pull these in. I've got to work quite quickly. I'm going to pull them in together. The great thing about Lego is that it all joins together, doesn't it? That's the beauty of Lego. So if you do drip a bit over on the Lego between each pour, it doesn't matter. I'm going to start with the. I'm going to start with this one because I really want these parts next to plan the thing that I'm building. So I'm going to go quite high, and I want a really thin stream. There we go. We're just going to gently. Don't rush this stage, because if you just dump it on and you get a horrible air bubble in there, or it doesn't look right, you'll just kick yourself. So just take your time. I actually think we're going to need more, to be honest. I'll do what I can with this, and then I'll come back and do the rest off camera. It's quite a nice thing to watch. Oh, it's looking great. I don't want to overfill it. I think that's about right. Oh, okay, so we'll just go straight on. Yeah, I think we're going to need more actually for the rest of these. So I'll do what I can. Oh, a bit of a big dollop there. Try to avoid that if you can. Particularly if you've not used a vacuum pump. If you have, it's a little bit more forgiving. Okay, and I really need this big long section next in this model I'm building, so I'll go straight onto that. There we go, that was better. I think we're just going to have enough for this larger one. If not, I've got a real little one here which we might be able to squeeze. Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah, I think we've got just enough to do this little one. Okay, let's have a look. We might get this little one here done, so I might need my little scraper. Oh God, don't drip it on the carpet. So let's just gently. Oh, do you know what? I might have enough to do all of it. I'm just trying to be as careful as I can. Yeah, I think it's just enough. Oh God, don't drip. All right, we're going to give it a go. It's always a bit of a gamble, but I think once you've poured a couple, you kind of know where you are with your mixtures. And as I said, I'm sure there's a mathematical equation to do it. But I think ultimately, just doing it by eye is good enough. So we're just trying to encourage all of that mixture. Oh, we might be a tiny, tiny bit short. Come on. I'm not rushing this. Oh God. Come on. Oh, do you know what? It's not quite there. That's a shame. Still coming though. It's so thick. All right. Do you know what? We might be able to coax. Oh, it's so close. I mean, it literally like 50 mil. Oh yeah, look at that. I think that might do it. Come on. Do you know what I might do? I might just very quickly try and mix up a tiny, tiny bit more just to finish it off. So I'm still going to use this blue one I had here. And I'm just going to whack the two in together. It's not the best way of doing it, but if you need a tiny, tiny bit, you can make it work. Yeah, I think that'll do it. I know this is not what you wanted to see, but it might work. So again, I'm just going to judge this by eye. Yeah, I think that's it. That is it. Right, I'm going to get a fresh stirrer and do this by hand. It's turned the right colour, so that's a really good start. Although it's a bit, oh yeah, no, it is the right colour. It's good, it's good. Now, all of that original silicone has gone into the bit I'm moulding. So I'm not worried about air bubbles at this point. I just want to top the mould off. So I'm just gonna whack this on top. I could have just left it and not poured the last one, but it's not quite the right colour, but I think we'll be all right. If it doesn't work, I'll let you guys know. I don't mind taking a risk every now and then. Go on, just a tiny bit more. There we go. All right, so we just about salvaged it. Just. I think it'll be all right. Now, if you haven't got a vacuum chamber, what you can do is you can use a drill or a jigsaw without a blade in it, and you can put it on the surface and just allow the vibration to just shake out those final pieces. It's not the best way of doing it. That's why we use the vacuum pump, but it's a way of doing it. There we go. It helped on that last one actually, so that's good because we didn't have a vacuum pump for that. All right, well that is it for now. It's Saturday. I'm going to leave this overnight. I think the recommended cure time is about 6 hours, but I'm going to leave it overnight just to guarantee that I've got a really good cure on that. And then what I've found as well is even after that, even after leaving it overnight, because of the depth of the moulds, I've kind of taken the Lego pieces off and pulled the mould off, and it's still quite squidgy on the inside. It's solidified, but it's still quite squidgy. But I then turned it upright and then left it for another 6 to 10 hours or even overnight again, and then it's all ready to go. So I'm going to do that now. You know, what will be a couple of days for me will be seconds for you guys, and then we'll come back, demold these, and then we'll pour some resin in them. I'm back. It's been 20 hours since I poured the silicone into these moulds. Now I have demolded 2 already just to make sure that they worked. And I'm pleased to say that those 2 I demolded this morning are absolutely perfect. So this is really good news. Now, one thing to talk about before we demold the rest of them. These 3 are absolutely fine by the looks of it. The only problem with this one, for some reason, maybe my table wasn't level, but it is. I made it so it's really, really sturdy. So I think maybe something got underneath this one, or I over poured it. That's probably more the case. And what's happened is, if you can see that maybe on the top-down camera, that the silicone has shifted towards one side. Now, the reason why that will be a problem is because when we demold it and flip it over and then cast the items from the mould, it just means that it will tip slightly. So what it means is that we'll have to put this back in this Lego surround and then just jack it up a little bit with some plastic card or a pencil or something, just so it levels it out. So not amazing, but it happens. And in a way, I'm kind of glad it happens to show you that it can happen. These ones are all absolutely fine, so I'm not worried about them in the slightest. So I am going to get my mouth involved there. It doesn't taste very nice, but it's okay. And we're just going to gently pull the Lego away. It's coming away quite nicely. So those surrounds, because they were put on with Pritt stick and not like plastic cement or super glue, they come off really nicely, and just means you can use them again if you want as well, which is good. I know Lego does like this little tool, doesn't it, that you stick it on and helps you remove bricks. But it just goes to show that the double-sided tape has really worked well here. Oh, come on. Might be able to just prise this off. It's a bit of a fight, but take your time. It's well worth it. You can actually see the moulds coming away from the items I've cast in there. Oh, okay. Well, we'll do it that way. I'm not going to argue. See if we can get these Lego bits off. A bit more of the surrounds. And you can see how much it slipped over. It slipped over loads. But as long as we prop it up when we come to cast, the bits inside will cast perfectly fine. Okay. Moment of truth. Whoa. Just be really gentle. I'm trying to show you on the camera, but it's a bit tricky. Oh, that double-sided tape has done the business, I tell you. Oh, look at that. Okay, so some of them have come off with the plate at the bottom. That's absolutely fine. Oh, yeah. And we'll just gently try and get this on the camera for you. Gently just prise these out. You can see actually that some of the silicone has got underneath the parts that we're trying to mould. That's okay. And what that'll do is that'll produce this like really thin membrane across the top. Hopefully you can see that. And all I do is I just peel it off with my finger. Just gently though, you don't want to rip the mould with it. Just peel it off nice and gently. And because it's so thin, it will just come off with your fingers without hopefully damaging the rest of the mould. I think, if I'm honest, this is the worst mould I've made so far, so that's not too bad for an absolute beginner. And it will cast absolutely fine. So you can see I'm just picking those little bits off. Yeah, that's all right. And then this, what I'll do is, if I've got my scalpel anywhere, yeah, I'm just going to trim this with my scalpel. Is that in shot? Can you see that? Try not to stick my head in the way. There we go. And we'll just trim this side off as well. You'll notice as well that the colour's blue and not purple like the rest of them. You know, it's weird, isn't it? I mixed all the right ratios and I mixed them really thoroughly, but for some reason it's just turned that colour. We've got a tiny little tear in the side here, so I was a bit keen. Okay, well, if I'm honest, that will be all right. It's not amazing, but it will be okay. And if it is really bad, then I'll just recast it. It's just unfortunate now. It's, you know, if I do have to recast it, it's just cost me in a bit of silicon. But I could pick at this for days, so I'm going to leave it like there. But you can. There is no air bubbles in that whatsoever. That is a really nice, clean cast, apart from the seepage there on the bottom. But on the whole, not a bad cast. Quite happy with that. And now we'll just continue on with the rest of the bits. Let's get these out. Lego is such an amazing, I mean, one, it's an amazing toy, and I'm sure we all grew up with it, but for this application, it's great. There are like these red and blue box that you can buy, which kind of, they're like Duplo bricks almost, but they're sort of professional tools. Quite a few guys online that use those, but you know, if you're a guy like me just casting stuff at home, then you know, it's one less expense you need to pay out for. So I've just peeled all the edges off, and we'll just try and prise. Oh, that came away much nicely. There we go, we'll get rid of that. And what I do is just pick these edges off. There's a little bit of seepage, but a lot less than there would have been if I hadn't blocked the sides up. And I just separate the, you can see that on camera, just separate the mould there. And because of the way these are 3D printed, they've got a big big gap in the middle, but that's okay. If you just use the back of your scalpel or a sculpting tool or something just to free it from the inside there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And what I tend to do is I just tend to get my fingers in there and just gently apply pressure, really gently, and you'll see it just coming out, boom. And then we can just pick that tiny bit of seepage out there. So that's nothing major. And we'll have a quick look in the mould, if you guys can see this or not. But that is an absolute perfect mould. No issue there whatsoever. So very happy with that one. Oh, I'll try and get these ones off. I'd have to use my teeth again. Oh, don't break your teeth. I had loads of issues with my teeth when I was in my teenage years, and cost a lot of money to get it fixed. Oh, now remember, this was the one I did, and I ran out of silicone right at the end, so I just hastily mixed them together, and it looks like it's gone okay, so that's good. Oh, come on. Makes quite a satisfying dong when that goes in there, doesn't it? Oh. Okay, that looks really good so far. So we'll pull off our little sides. Lovely clean cast all along the side. That's lovely. Or mould rather. It's a mould, isn't it? Not a cast just yet. Oh yeah. And again, we're just going to tease the edges out a little bit. It has seeped under the part we wanted to cast a little bit, but that's okay. It's not a problem. We can sort that out later. And again, we're just going to tease the middle out a little bit just to separate it. Those products that we sprayed on, that would have really helped this. I think without those products, it would have been an absolute nightmare. Oh, that's come away lovely. Nice, gentle pressure. We don't want to rip this center part out. Come on, nice and gentle. It's coming. Just patience is the key word here. Come on, it's coming. Look at that. And again, we'll inspect the mould very quickly. Yep, there is no air bubbles in that, and it's absolutely perfect. Well worth having that vacuum chamber. Well worth. Okay, so we'll pop that out the front. And finally, this big boy. Oh, get the teeth involved there. Comes away really nicely. I'm trying to remember what part this was actually. I can't quite remember. Oh, I know, it was a straight wall section is what it was. Need these real bad for this model I'm building. Oh, so excited. You know, all that work that's gone in here to make it happen. Oh yeah, that's another really good one. Pull my little edges off, can reuse those. This is perfect. Okay, so it has seeped out a little bit again. Just need to file these items a little bit more before I put them in the molds in the future, just to stop that seepage. It's not a problem, but it would just help a little bit more. It's good. We'll free the middle off once again. I know you've seen me do this 4 or 5 times, but you know, it's all too easy to go, oh, I've done it for the other 2, I won't bother this time and it'll be absolutely fine. You know, you can always guarantee that the time you don't, it'll just rip the center out, and you don't want that, because ultimately it's money, isn't it? You know, you've spent money on first your own time, and then you've spent resin and products and all sorts of bits and bobs. Oh, that has come out beautifully. Just quickly inspect it. Yeah, that is an absolute perfect mould. So I think 1 out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you know, 1, that'll still cast, that'll still be absolutely fine, but not the most perfect one. And that is it. That is the moulding process done. What I'll do is, in the next video, I'll do some casting. And the reason why is now that these are out, I just want them to cure overnight again for another 24 hours, just to make sure that they are good to go. And what I'll do as well is I'll just spend a bit more time just picking away at these edges and just make sure that we've got a really nice mould ready to pour our resin into. In the meantime, what I will do is I will prepare some more moulds, because I've got tons to make, and I've got more 3D printed items coming from Brad, because Grimdark Terrain released another pack over the weekend, so there is going to be even more to cast and build. So lots to do. I really hope you found this interesting. All I would say is give it a go, because you don't know what will happen until you give it a go. And like I said, you don't need all of this vacuum chamber, you don't need any expensive equipment, you just need that little pack which I showed you for 55, 54 pounds, whatever it is. Some Lego, some plasticard, read the instructions, follow the directions, and you'll be absolutely fine. So I'm going to get these cleaned up, and I'll get them ready for the next video, which will be casting the resin. Thanks so much for watching.